Rick Grimes is watching news on TV that shows footage of the destruction of Omaha, one of the 3 rings on the CRM flag, along with Secret City and Portland. The TV shows that the walls were breached, walkers stormed the place, people holed themselves up in a building but ended up dying and turning into walkers. Distressed by what he sees and without hope, Rick cuts his neck with a shard of glass. It was a suicide thought? Or just a self-punishment for something he did? 5 years after The Bridge, when he blew up the bridge to save his friends and was taken away by a helicopter with the help of Jotties, Rick has been taken in by the Civic Republic Military, a self-governing body that protects the city of Philadelphia. Rick is now on a mission nearby the woods. That mission is pushing him closer to achieving Civic Republic citizenship. Rick, however, is tethered to a CRM soldier as he makes his way through the woods, hacking away at walkers who are caught on fire. The CRM soldier yanks Rick back when he gets a little too far, but instead of obeying orders, Rick chops off his hand to free himself from the shackles. After cauterizing the wound, he's quickly tossed by one of the guards. He falls conscious, bleeding out. Rick has recurring dreams of a park where he meets Michonne. So he wakes up in his room at the CRM base. However, he is completely at their mercy. Their principle is prioritizing security and secrecy above everything else, which implies that no one can ever escape the city, as Rick clarifies. Those individuals, like himself, who are consignees, are obligated to serve on the outskirts of the city for a minimum of 6 years. During this time, they must demonstrate their worth through assignments such as eliminating walkers or cultivating crops. However, Rick has no desire to demonstrate his worth. Instead, he devises a plan to escape, despite having made numerous unsuccessful attempts in the past. In the meantime, Rick fulfills his duties by eliminating walkers at the border, a task closely overseen by Commander Okafor. It was Okafor who intervened and prevented Rick from facing consequences for his previous escape endeavor. Okafor believes that Rick has the potential to progress as a valuable soldier within the CRM and offers assistance. However, Rick refuses Okafor's help and returns to his duties. Filled with fury, he unleashes an onslaught on the walkers before him, pushing himself to the limit until he eventually collapses, drenched in blood. Upon his return to the base, Rick is confronted by Thorn, a female consignee, who hurls a glass in his direction. She sarcastically remarks that she should express her gratitude towards him, as his unsuccessful attempt to escape, resulting in the loss of his hand, solidified her belief that there is no possible way to escape. Afterward, Rick finds himself sitting on a bench by the river, his gaze fixed on the city across the way. His companion, Esteban, joins him and playfully teases him about his missing hand. Esteban shares the news that it is his final day of consignment, and he will be in the city the following day, proudly mentioning the luxury of air conditioning that awaits him there. Garcia suggests to Rick that he should consider joining the soldier training program as a means to alleviate the pressure from others. He proposes that Rick should plan his next escape while on a scavenging mission with the soldiers. This notion resonates with Rick, causing him to become lost in deep contemplation as the gears in his mind start turning, formulating a new plan. Over the course of the following year, Rick dedicates himself to rigorous soldier training. He acquires combat skills, frequently meeting with Okafor in the greenhouse for guidance. In an exciting development, Rick receives a remarkable new prosthetic arm, complete with a retractable blade, which he finds undeniably impressive. As he grows into a skilled and committed soldier, he continues to be haunted by dreams of Michonne, who cryptically reveals that she is present on the park bench every day. One night, Okafor clandestinely escorts Rick and Thorn outside. Much to their surprise, Okafor reveals his own scheme. He intends to train them to become future leaders within the CRM, despite Rick's previous escape attempts and Thorn's confession of her past attempt to harm Okafor. In addition, Okafor divulges crucial information about the inner workings of their operation. Upon the arrival of survivors, they are classified as either A's or B's. A's represent individuals who are determined, resilient, and capable, while B's refer to ordinary people who are simply striving to survive. Shockingly, Okafor reveals that A's are usually dispatched and eliminated due to their perceived independence and unruliness, whereas B's are sent into the city. However, Okafor expresses his desire to keep Rick and Thorn, both A's, alive. He firmly believes that they possess the potential to enact significant change within the CRM system. Days gone by, and Rick finds himself once again on the bench by the river. Unexpectedly, his solitude is interrupted by Major General Beale, who divulges that Okafor previously served in the U.S. Air Force. With directness, Beale confronts Rick, inquiring if Okafor is involved in any suspicious activities. In response, Rick chooses to deceive Major General Beale by denying any knowledge of Okafor's actions or intentions. Driven by his determination to escape, Rick devotes himself to refining his plan, meticulously studying maps and blueprints of the underground pipe system. During his time in the city, he reconnects with Esteban, now a water manager in the CRM. Recognizing Esteban's expertise, Rick beseeches him for assistance in obtaining further details about the tunnels, hoping this newfound information will aid in his escape. At first, Esteban hesitates and declines Rick's request. However, as their conversation continues, Esteban cautiously relents and discreetly reveals that the tunnel will lead Rick towards the eastern direction. It becomes evident that Esteban has little faith in Rick's ability to successfully execute his escape plan, reflecting his skepticism through his words and demeanor. In the midst of a mission at an abandoned chemical plant, Rick seizes the opportunity to set his escape plan into motion. While the other soldiers are occupied, he stealthily separates from the group and discreetly attaches his own dog tags to a lifeless walker. He wants to fake his own death. To further deceive his comrades, he severs the walker's hand, hoping to divert any suspicions. As Rick finds himself encircled by walkers, he cleverly employs a light device to divert their attention, providing him with a necessary distraction to increase his chances of a successful escape. As Rick is on the verge of entering the pipes, his stealthy actions are abruptly interrupted by the piercing scream of a young girl who discovers him. Without hesitation, Rick chases after her, driven by a mix of concern and the need to prevent any potential exposure. Fortunately, Thorn intervenes, coming to the aid of both Rick and the girl. Thorn astutely discerns Rick's intentions and compels him to rejoin their group, emphasizing that Okafor is aware of his escape plans. The revelation leaves Rick with little choice but to abandon his immediate escape attempt and return with Thorn and the others. At night, Rick confronts Okafor, awakening him from his slumber. Holding a knife menacingly close to Okafor's throat, Rick demands answers. Okafor unveils his knowledge regarding Michonne and Rick's family, striking a nerve within Rick and fueling his fury. A fierce altercation ensues between the two individuals, each fighting tooth and nail. In the midst of the struggle, Okafor discloses a shocking truth: his own culpability in the devastating bombings of Atlanta and Los Angeles, where he sacrificed his own wife and, tragically, 4,000 innocent lives, all in the name of what he believed to be the greater good. In a tense turn of events, Okafor gains the upper hand and holds a gun against Rick. Filled with desperation, Rick seizes the moment and presses the barrel of the gun against his own head, pleading with Okafor to pull the trigger. Consumed by a sense of hopelessness, Rick would rather die than remain trapped in his current situation. However, Okafor adamantly refuses to comply with Rick's desperate request. Instead, he reveals that a new base is set to open in a year, where high-ranking commanders will gather for a summit. Okafor expresses his desire for Rick and Thorn to assume leadership roles in overseeing the conversion process. Pushing back against the idea, Rick insists that he has no interest in power or authority. Okafor counters by affirming that, regardless of Rick's intentions, he already possesses the potential to exert influence and make an impactful difference. Some time later, we get to the beginning, while Rick and Thorn observe the deteriorating state of the city through recorded footage. Doubt clouds their understanding of the cause behind its downfall. They ponder whether it was the result of human actions or the relentless onslaught of walkers. In this contemplative moment, Thorn reaches her own conclusion, firmly believing that the city's demise was a consequence of human ignorance and their own flawed choices. The realization dawns on Rick that Thorn's loyalty and alliance cannot be counted upon, as she appears to harbor her own agenda and lacks the commitment to stand by him as a true ally. That's the very moment when Rick cuts himself with glass. Rick and Thorn immerse themselves in the task of converting the new base, dedicating their time and effort to shape the structure into a functional and operational space. As days turn into weeks and weeks into months, the progress becomes evident as the once desolate building takes on new life and purpose under their guidance. Eventually, when their work is complete, Rick acknowledges his need to let go of the emotional attachments that have tethered him to the past. He symbolically burns his letters and etchings of Michonne, signifying his willingness to move forward and embrace his newfound role. With a resolute determination, Rick affirms his commitment to doing whatever it takes to contribute towards saving the world, accepting the weight of his responsibilities in his resigned state. In yet another dream, Rick finds himself back at the park, sharing a simple moment with Michonne as he offers her pizza. In a whimsical gesture, he suggests the idea that he could come back with a wedding ring, to which Michonne expresses her agreement. However, the tranquility is abruptly shattered as flames engulf Michonne, and Rick is haunted by visions of an old house and the devastating bridge explosion. Once more, he jolts awake, his mind and heart burdened by the weight of these haunting reminders of the past. As we return to the present, Rick finds himself seated in a helicopter alongside Okafor, their destination shrouded in secrecy. Seizing the opportunity to distract his mind from the uncertainty of their journey, Rick shares a poignant recollection from his childhood. He recounts a vivid memory from when he was merely 7 years old, a time when his family's farm was engulfed in flames. Within the kitchen of his childhood, a young Rick stumbled upon a harrowing sight, his father bearing severe burns. The sight of his father in such a state filled him with terror. Yet, in the face of this distress, his father offered solace and reassurance, providing a sense of comfort to his young son. Years later, his mother revealed that his father had set the crops on fire on purpose. Their farm had faced crippling financial struggles, and sacrificing the crops became an act of necessary desperation in order to save their family from ruin. In the present moment, as Rick concludes his story, a sudden and shocking turn of events unfolds. An explosive device propels through the window, piercing Okafor and becoming embedded in his body. Moments later, the device detonates, resulting in Okafor's untimely demise. Chaos ensues as the helicopter comes under fire, leading to a catastrophic crash in the dense woods below. Rick, along with the remaining soldiers, emerges from the wreckage, engaging in a fierce firefight against an unidentified adversary. As Rick succumbs to exhaustion and collapses, an unseen figure emerges from the shadows, swiftly dispatching the remaining soldiers. Finally, the mysterious figure reaches Rick and removes his helmet. Rick gazes upwards, his eyes meeting the tear-filled eyes of Michonne, whom he thought he would never see again.